In 1993, Final Approach changed the way we hunt waterfowl. Now, over 25 years later, we're back at it. My name's Mario, host of the FA podcast. Let's talk waterfowl tips, tricks, tactics, and more. It's all going down right here with the Final Approach podcast. What up, Final Approach? It's Mario with all the FA carvers. We're minus Amy Wells. She's down in South Carolina. Couldn't make it on the trip, so we got Wayne Simpkin from Canada, Pat Godin in the middle from Canada, and from Nebraska, not originally, but just moved Tom Christie. So 25 world championships sitting here, world decoy carving championships. And the thing we wanted to talk about, we're going to do a few of these, but we're going to go technical, let's kind of say, and we're going to talk about, the tools you guys use. We're going to talk wood. We're going to talk everything carving. So we'll talk about, wood and tools and techniques, and we'll explain different techniques. So maybe somebody does want to, get into it, or, talk about, where they can find information and books that you two guys have done, and videos and all kind of other stuff. So maybe let's start real basic. Let's start wood. Everybody uses Tupelo.
No, I believe so. And
best wood, Pat.
Well, we're making our birds for competition, and Tupelo is for sure the best.
Okay.
If I was going to make a rig of hunting decoys,
yeah,
I'd probably use cedar. White cedar is undoubtedly the best.
Okay.
Yeah, and and there's other variations of wood you can use for the heads, even on a cedar decoy. But
okay,
cedar is a lot of the old decoys. And the antique decoys were made of cedar.
A lot of high density cork too for bodies on gunning decoys.
Sure. Wait, are we doing the white cedar because of the way it's kind of gonna hold up in the water, or the weight, or why would you guys pick something like that?
It's weight, like it's very light wood, but still some of the old traditional decoys were still quite hollow.
Okay.
It's a very resilient wood to rot.
Okay, so that's really the basic, probably the main, right, Pat?
Yeah. There's a chemical in cedar that prevents it from deteriorating and rotting.
There you go.
Unlike some other woods, like basswood will rot very quickly.
Correct.
If it's exposed
to the elements.
Yes,
right.
And Tupelo is the same thing. But when we do our competition decoys, we protect them really well. So
absolutely.
So they could last. It should last hundreds of years if they're taken care
of. Let me ask this, and as we go through this whole thing, like if there's like secrets like you don't want to give up, like I get it. But as far as getting wood, is there a lot of places to find the Tupelo or to find the cedar and stuff like that? Like, is it easily available?
Not easily, no. I mean, especially for I live in Ontario, and I mean the actual access to it is pretty limited. I'll pick it up when I go down to the shows in the southern states, and that type of thing. Pat, who has some very good contacts in Louisiana,
right?
Yeah, Tupelo grows in the water, cypress swamps in the southern U.S. and in North Carolina and the Carolinas.
Sure.
So it's grows in very specific areas, and it's not a wood you're going to find in the north.
Correct.
So we have to rely on people that make the effort to harvest the wood in those areas.
Yeah, it's a type of wood too that is just specific to carvings. I don't know of any other real
uses
commercial
use
for it.
Right. So so we got wood. Maybe let's talk. I guess the next thing would be to talk. Hand tools versus power tools, and what you guys use. So we'll kind of go down the line. We can start with Wayne, and you could talk about your progression, because you scale, you big and go down to fine. So maybe go through what you start with and then finish.
Actually, well, I used to start right with the big Fordham with the big tungsten bit, and I've recently acquired a horse where I can sort of clamp the piece down,
right,
and I can hog off a lot of wood with the draw knife.
Yeah.
And that's really, and it's cleaner, so I'm not filling my shop up with dust
and it's pretty even. Like when you're coming with the draw knife is big and wide, and you can kind of get
Yeah,
pieces
just to hog
and
off, just kind of get the general round shape of the
Right,
bird. And,
right.
And that, you just gotta be careful with the grain. Tupelo, you've gotta, it's very forgiving for going against the grain, where basswood and cedar is not.
Right.
So I can kind of work against the grain a little bit, but you still gotta be mindful.
You want to be with the grain all the time if you can on just about all the woods.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're going to start with the draw knife, and then are you going to switch to a power tool then?
Yeah,
or a
then I'll
Fordham?
go to the high speed, like a Fordham.
Sure.
With a large carbide cuts all on it that
Right.
really, and you're peeling off a lot of wood at a time.
Right.
Making a lot of dust, so you should be wearing a mask at that
And
time.
some filtration, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll just go finer bits on the Fordham.
Yeah.
And then just keep going.
And then just keep going. Then I've got a Geschwein, which is a
Yeah.
high speed, about a 50,000 RPM, I believe
Yep.
there.
Yep. I know that one.
And just kind of work my way down with that. And, to a progression of, diamond bits, ruby bits.
Sure.
Cross-cut steel cutters and that type of thing. And then finally sandpaper, which is not my favorite part of the process, but it's
a must.
a necessary evil. Yeah.
Right. Pat. Okay. Well, what about you? How are you starting and then going
I'm-
through and finishing?
Not too dissimilar from how Wayne works. I learned to carve way back in the 70s, all with hand tools. There's no power tools involved other than my burning tips, which
Right.
we used to put in the finest detail. And so I'll probably bring it a little bit further than Wayne with my hand tools. I'll use the draw knife to basically shape the roundness of the bird. Then I'll work the major feather groups in with various size gouges. Again, one of the advantages of that is you get nice wood chips coming away, no
Right.
dust.
Right. With the hand tools, right?
Yeah,
With the gouges and stuff.
that's how I learned to carve from the very beginning.
Right.
And of course, as you progress through the carving process, you're going with more refined tools
Right.
until you're down to, with the decorative birds, creating feather barb texture with either a stone or burning tool.
Right. Anything? I mean, just add what you do if it's different or similar.
Yep.
Just kind of walk us through you.
Very similar. When I started carving, I was carving my own hunting decoys, and that was primarily hand tools. Because I was doing it in my basement and I couldn't afford to generate a lot of dust, so just hogging off a lot of wood with sharp hand tools was good. I do want to give a pitch too for a good bandsaw. Before you start carving, most people need a good deep-throated bandsaw, like 12 to 14 inches throat on it, so that you can get a block of Tupelo or whatever you're
Through it and get your pattern
because
started, or your a little bit of a shape of, like, not just a square block or a rectangle.
Right. Just do a side profile and then a profile down, a couple of cuts, and you've taken off a lot of wood. Then you can start hacking on it.
Yeah, because that would, I mean, without the bandsaw and you'd have to really go to town on some.
Yeah, I have used a hatchet, and some people do that. But normally I'm bandsawing first, and then, like on a big goose, I used a hatchet to hog off wood.
I know I have a picture of you sending me the hatchet with the live honkers.
Yeah.
I remember that. I was
And
like,
it gave me new appreciation for those people that use a hatchet to carve. You do that for about a minute, and your wrist is ready to go limp. But it is an effective way to get a lot of the corners off of the bandsawed block. And then like these guys, I moved to grinding later with better dust control. So I've got really good dust control. I wear a respirator when I grind, along with the dust collection equipment.
Sure.
And I use a Fordham and a Geschwein for the detail work.
Yeah, I mean, those are probably the two most popular. I don't want to say like nobody uses a Dremel, but that Geschwein is like, that's like top.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like
and
a
when
great
somebody's first starting
tool.
out, I mean, a Geschwein it's a pretty significant outlay of cash.
Right.
And so I think you'd want to make sure
That you're in it.
you're in it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I still use the little marathon model and it's pretty cost effective.
Yeah. So let's talk about paint. So we're, whether we burn detail in or we stoned it in with a power tool or whatever. So I'll start with Pat. So we get to, well, let me ask one question to everybody really quick, and then I'll go right to Pat. what kind of paints do you use?
Acrylic.
Acrylic.
Oils.
Okay, so let's start with Pat, and then I want to go to you because I want to hear about the oil. So go ahead.
Yeah.
And then you chime in, Tom, if there's something, we'll come to you right after on the acrylic since you guys both use it. But then I want to listen to Wayne.
Yeah, of course, if you're painting a bird, your primary objective is to duplicate the colors on the real bird. And that takes a skill in mixing your paints to match colors and also knowing the sequence of application of the paint too. You can mix a color that looks like the real bird and put it on, and it might not look quite right, but if you use a series of steps of overlaying paint, you'll get quite a different effect in the end.
Absolutely.
So that takes some skill in learning how to paint and how to apply the paint, and then being able to anticipate what's going to happen over those series of steps. On my decorative birds, I don't only duplicate you might say the pigmentation color of the feathers, but then I bring it to another level. When you look at a lot of feathers on birds are translucent. So what you actually see on the real bird, you're actually seeing layers of feathers.
Right.
So I try to create the illusion that you can see through layers of feathers by creating translucent effects. And that kind of kicks your painting to another level. And then what I also do is, it's like an artist working in 2 dimensions on a canvas. They can paint the image of an object and make it look 3-dimensional on a 2-dimensional surface.
Right.
So I do the same thing on my 3-dimensional surface by painting the illusion of light hitting the surface.
Yeah, because do you want to add anything on the acrylics?
I would just add some of the advantages of acrylics.
Yeah, let's hear that.
And I've done both, but I started with acrylics. They use water as a solvent, which I like because I can rinse my paints out in the sink and not worry about what's going down the drain. They dry faster.
Okay.
And I've used them for 35 years and I've been successful with it, so I just kind of stuck with it. You do have to kind of develop blending techniques with acrylics because oils, and Wayne will talk about that, blend much easier and nicer because the medium stays wet longer.
I gotcha.
And you can really do some cool blending and color combinations with oils, but you can do that with acrylics as well. You just have to learn how to maneuver the paint.
Give me the advantages of like you using oil, and if I was say I just wanted to start a gunning decoy, would I just use an oil or would I use acrylic, or what's easier?
When I first started, I accidentally picked up some oils and hated it. And it just, the drying process was too long. I just didn't know how to manage the paints. And then I went to acrylics, and I used acrylics for a long time. And I switched over to oils about 12 years ago or so. And I still use the same type of application techniques that I was using with the acrylics. But I found with the oils that it gives me more open time, like what Tom was saying, so I can mix colors right on the bird. So if you want to create some highlights, you can put a little bit of yellow on some green and just kind of scribble that in, and it mixes up and gives you.
It mixes right on the bird.
Exactly.
Like you don't have to mix here on your plate and go.
No, you can apply it right on the bird, and if you don't like it, you can just kind of keep scrubbing it, and it'll fade back into where it was. And
so it's got some more forgiveness almost, right?
If you're careful, yes.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Now I think the biggest thing I tell anybody that's getting into oils, you've got to learn when to give up the fight.
Well, I want to hear more about that because that sounds about something that I need to learn. Like, this is when you give up, right?
Yeah, no. If the color's starting to get muddy on you, or just kind of getting away, put it down because you will not win. So let it.
It's good advice.
Yeah. Whereas with acrylics, you can just let that set, and then you can go right back at it within 10 minutes
and paint over it.
Yeah.
Right. So give me some. So on the oil-based side, I'm not saying, we're here to promote anything, but, okay, so what's we talk about a Fordham and the Guess wine, and so what's a type of oil-based paint that is, say, top of the line? Is there a couple that you're using that would kind of help somebody? Because, listen, you could ask a question online and on a page, and you're going to get whoever's promoting what, but you guys do this for a living, so you've used a bunch of stuff and what's quality.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Windsor Newton is probably the most popular one that's out there. That's
I've used it.
That's a high end line.
Yep.
Gamblin is another good one.
Okay.
That I've
and those
used.
are all oil.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Pat. So give me some acrylic paints, and I'll ask Tom if he uses something different or whatever, because I've used both. So I've used the Windsor. I'm familiar with that. So
Yeah, there's a couple different ones that seem to be popular, and one of the key things, some acrylic paints, when they dry, basically acrylic paint is the pigment in a medium, and the medium is kind of a plastic-based medium, and some acrylic paints, when they dry, they kind of look like they have that plastic look to them, just that sheen that comes off them, which is not what we want. And the one that we did a lot of experimentation with it, and it became very popular, is it's made by Deco Art, Traditions Acrylics.
Yep.
Now that isn't made as a fine art paint, but we found that the binders are really
good.
incredibly tough, and they hold the pigment really well. They also dry very matte, which simulates the look of real
very
finish.
important, right?
Yeah,
So,
so-
what place is that, if you want to say? Because there are some great places and online places that have that knowledge that somebody can go to and
Yeah.
trust.
Yeah, well, if you want to buy supplies to make hunting decoys, that fellow in Michigan, Willie McDonald.
I was just going to say Willie's Duck
yeah,
Blind or whatever, right?
Yeah, his business is called the Duck Blind. You
Yeah.
can find it online, and
That's the guy.
and he supplies cork. He has all kinds of different other materials and things that he sells, and he more probably oriented towards the people that do gunning decoys.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Tom? What anything on the acrylic side as far as what brand or?
I use Traditions, but also Josanya is a
Yep,
brand
I've
that
used that.
I've had great luck with over many, many years. And I use some airbrush paint called Chroma.
Yep.
And those are the ones and then I seal the decoys because
After all the paint's on, you seal it.
with a top secret sealer
Perfect.
called Deft. No, called
You don't
Dull,
have to say it.
Dull Coat.
Yeah.
And that has been a great lacquer sealer. And then I may touch that up with something to give it a little more sheen because
Sure.
Dull Coat is pretty flat.
Right, it is flat.
I normally give them a couple of good coats with that. And I've never had a problem with that. But I got used to the Josanya
Sure.
colors
I'm
and
very
kind
familiar
of
with
you
that.
get used to it over the years.
Yeah.
And you can get those at any Dick
Yeah.
Blick or any of the big
I was just going
art
to say
supply stores.
that's a great art supply store too, the Dick Blick. Is there any other places that you look for stuff, or So let's just talk that really quick. Like as far as it doesn't matter if it's paint or carving materials. Is there any place or online or anywhere that you guys have all? I know we can go right through of for somebody who wants to carve or who's in it or needs help. Like, is there anything where you would direct them?
Willie is a good resource. There's a company called James Company.
Yes.
Jaymes, I think. And he's been in it a long time, has all kinds of reference materials for people.
And we're going
just
to talk
getting
about
started.
that in a minute too. Anywhere else or?
Well, I was going to mention James Company too. And years ago, there used to be several really dedicated suppliers for decoy carvers, but a lot of them have gone by the wayside.
Right.
And
Right.
there's the Greg Durant's company, and
Yeah.
that's another one.
Greg Durant, you said?
Greg Durant's,
Okay.
yes.
MDI, are they still?
Yeah, MDI. I think there's
It's
still
another good wood
operating.
carving company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything, Wayne, that you?
Yeah, there's KV carving supplies out in Eastern Canada.
Oh, yeah, and Razor Tip.
Yeah, razor
Yeah,
tip.
that's those are
Cambercle,
two
yeah.
Canadian ones.
Is there? So let's talk brushes really quick, and then I want to hit reference. But brushes. Is there is there a brand or you know, I mean, you want to get the top brushes, but I mean, I could tell you that I'm probably not as, you know, versed in what the best brushes are. So is there something that you gravitate to? And I'll ask all you guys.
Well, Raphael has a real nice line. I don't know how available they are now. And then there's,
Okay.
but I was using like Klinsky brushes, and that's for doing fine detail
Sure,
stuff. And the advantage to them is if you're using like a number 4 or 5 Klinsky, that you can get a real nice load of paint in your brush and go a long time with painting the fine line. Yeah.
Is there some brushes, Pat, that you know, obviously not giving up the secret squirrel brushes, but
No, but there's, I think there's, it's probably important to talk about the different styles of brushes
sure,
that I
go for
use.
it. Yeah, go for it.
And, you know, you've got general application of paint, maybe over a big area, and you can use fairly wide brushes. I like filbert, that's the
Okay.
exact one, filbert, this thing
Okay,
called
gotcha.
filbert, as opposed to a flat, which is
Absolutely.
straight across the end. So, yeah, so, and then I'll use some smaller synthetic brushes. Those cats, or the filbert ones, I use synthetic brushes.
Gotcha.
You know, there's no need to use a expensive brush for
Right.
that. And the same thing with, you have some smaller round brushes for smaller areas to just application. And then for blending, I have 2 different brushes I use for blending. In big areas, if I have a big blend, I use a fan blender and a stiff fan blender, and you can really move the paint
Right.
around real easily with
Right.
that. And wet into wet, I'm applying them on and swishing
Blending
them
them in,
together
right,
and blending them together.
Right.
And then for smaller, finer blending, I use what is known as the Pat Godin special blending brushes.
Are you getting this, Tom?
Oh, I've got them.
Yeah, we all got them.
So anyway, they would. I think have you used them in oil paint?
Yep.
Because
No,
I would
they
think
work great.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
is
they'll
it
use
your
oil.
own, is it your line of brushes or like?
I developed those probably 35
Long
years
time
ago.
ago.
James Company that manufactures them, and then I made a deal. He can put my name on it, and then
And those
I
are the
sell them
brushes
as well.
that you, okay, so they're like Pat Godin signature series brushes. Awesome.
And then the next level of brush is the Klinsky Sable. Now, when we say Klinsky, that's not a brand. That's the style
That's
of
a
hair.
style, right?
Because every brand of brush will usually have their highest end brushes will be Klinsky Sables. I use a lot of the Raphael brushes that Wayne mentioned too.
Sure.
You know, they're pricey. You can buy tiny little brushes, maybe $30.
Yeah, but you know, how many of those brushes you still have, Wayne, since you bought, like you still have them all probably? Well,
No,
they're
but
they
damn
do-
close, right?
Yeah.
They will wear out though.
Well, you guys are going pretty
take,
hard on 'em,
Yeah, you
like-
take care of them as well as you can, but
Right.
they still wear.
Yeah.
And then I'll take those old brushes, and I have other uses for those old worn out brushes.
I guarantee it.
Well, they become mixing brushes, you know,
Or
that's
something
kind
else.
of
Sure.
a
Better over
Nothing
time.
gets wasted, right?
No.
Yeah.
So what about you, Tom? Is there a
I'm an advocate for cheap brushes. The
let's hear
style,
it then. Let's hear it.
yeah, the style of painting that I do, there's a golden Taclon is the synthetic fiber, and you can get them in Craftsmart or Crafter's Choice in your Hobby Lobbies
Sure.
or your Michaels.
Yeah.
They're very cheap, but the way I paint, I really work a brush hard.
Okay.
And they're very durable and they're inexpensive. The only exception to that is and you can get them in big, wide, flat shapes or
All kind of
filbert
shapes,
or
right.
angles. The exception is the detail brush, and I'm still using a synthetic brush as opposed to a Kolinsky.
Okay.
Less expensive, but they point up nice.
Okay.
And I think the latest one I'm using is a King Art brush.
There's so, and obviously we can't go through all of it because there's so
Mm-hmm.
much. You have pattern books, and everybody's got, like, there's so many things that would just blow your mind. But is there any sources or something where maybe, and like I said, you don't have to give up your, you know, your secrets, but is there anything that's helpful there for somebody starting out, or guys and gals who are carving, and maybe this will help them? We'll start with you, Kyle.
Yeah, I use Flickr, Google, all those picture search engines are great references for good profiles. I did want to put a little pitch in for my YouTube channel. I just started this. I don't make
Yeah,
any
we're gonna
money
talk
on
about
it,
that. Absolutely.
but starting to do some from beginning to end. Like one of the videos is how do you make a pattern.
Right.
One of the videos is how do you bandsaw, and rough out a decoy. So that's a good reference that I'm hoping to build content over time to help people get started that might want to carve.
Right,
out
and
there.
tips and as you go and stuff like that. I think that's huge. I mean, before, when it was just books and the library that you guys said you started, grabbed a book out of the library. I mean, there wasn't much. Now there seems to be like an overload, but that should help everyone be a little, like, I would say, be a little more efficient on their time. You don't have to scour the world to get a pattern or pictures.
Yeah.
Right, Pat? What do you?
Yeah, well, you can find images of real exotic birds that
Sure.
some a long time ago before the internet, it was almost impossible to find
Right.
images except the odd picture here or there. You can find all kinds of great stuff on the internet now. But I've got books at home in the little library beside where I work that's just loaded with books with bird pictures, and that's what what was my reference way back at the beginning. Plus, there were times I had opportunities to photograph live birds myself.
Oh yeah.
So I have binders
Nothing like that.
full of 35 millimeter slides.
When you're doing that.
I've drawn my own patterns, and like I say, just from frozen birds, or been out on a hunting trip and come back, and I got a nice fresh bird. I'll sit down and sketch some stuff right from that bird.
I've got all my old DU magazines I use. You find a nice picture of a
Sure.
bird, I would cut it out, and then I've got a folder for each species. This is kind of old school.
No, but
because
that's
the
a filing.
digital's available, but any picture that kind of captures your attention, because that's the spark you're looking for, a good profile, something that really grabs your attention. I'll clip it out, put it in there. Then when I'm doing a mallard, I pull out the mallard.
Go through it.
I just kind of look for inspiration.
Sure. And
The other thing
and now you could have, just like Tom was saying, I know I have a folder still in the, in my cabinet that has some species, but then I have folders now on my hard drive of just all pictures on the computer. So I have it both. So go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, I was gonna say the other thing too is there's some great reference material for bills, like cast bills that are out there.
Oh,
either
yeah.
from a
That's a good
taxidermy supply house,
Oh, yeah.
or there was some guys that were doing it specifically for carvers. And to have that in front of you, from like it's a casting from a fresh bird.
That's right. A
So-
real bird.
Yeah, so it's not shrunk the way a mounted bird might
That's
be
right.
if they're not using a cast head.
You
in
can
it.
assure that your eyes on both sides are exactly where they should be. I mean, I'm talking for people just starting. Like
Yeah.
I remember just starting, and that was one of the hardest things. Like
That's not easy. Yeah.
Getting it. You have to be. It is precise because if one's, you
Oh,
can't.
And it's easy to convince yourself
That it looks
after
right.
you've put the effort into it. You're twisting it around. Yeah, I think
Oh,
it's
I think I got
the
it.
worst thing
It's not even
happens
close.
Is you're doing that and you're fighting for an hour and a half trying to get the eyes
Oh.
straight, and then your wife walks downstairs and said the eyes are crooked,
Yeah.
just like that.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you were convinced it looked good, and
Oh,
she called
yeah.
you out in 20
Oh,
seconds.
yeah.
You're like, and then she's not carving.
Yeah.
She just goes, "Hey, those are off," and you walk back and you go,
No,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
immediate
they are.
response is no, they're not.
It's so easy now. You make a post and you put up a video of, whatever, doing
How to
doing
detail
head,
a bill or
like
how to-
whatever,
yeah.
and somebody has a question, like, and throws it on your post, and you go, "Oh, try this." Like, that's instant. Like, that doesn't, like, you know how crazy that is to be that fortunate to get that information that quick. Because if I say, "Oh, hey Tom, what should I do here?" "Oh, just try this," and I'm like, "Holy crap!" Like, that was 2 minutes. Whereas, like, back in the day, you'd be like, Pat, you were talking about sending a letter to somebody and hoping you get something back,
Yeah.
like information.
And a lot of people don't have a carving club close to them,
And
or
absolutely.
people that they can carve and learn from. So
Yeah. No, we are a
Super
community.
handy.
It's very far stretched, but we're definitely a community all across North America. and the world. You know, I mean, it's, but I think if I can, in terms of material and everything else, just add one other thing, is that it doesn't matter if you're doing a gunning bird or a full decorative bird, don't cheap out on the eyes. It's, as a judge, I mean, it's, you look at a piece and it's like the guy put so much time and effort
And
into
then
it.
crap eyes.
And then crap eyes, and then he leaves paint on the eyes.
Oh, Jesus.
But,
Yeah, they wanted to save $5 or $6.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the difference between a good pair of
Nothing,
eyes and,
right.
a cheap pair of eyes is maybe $6.
Yeah.
And like I say, I think I'm worth the $6.
Yep.
I think you are too, Wayne. All right, listen, that's an incredible amount of information from Wayne Simpkin, Pat Godin, Tom Christie. I'm just the moderator. Holy crap. What an honor, fellas. Honest to God, like, this is cool. Big shout outs to Jamie Welsh, who could not be here. And Jamie's another one you can get a hold of and talk to. He's down in South Carolina, and you could always get a hold of him or any of these guys. And hopefully that helps you out in your, you know, if you want to carve, if you want to get started, whatever. This is generational knowledge here that's years upon years. I won't date anybody, but we got a lot of info right here. So use them, use it. Appreciate you checking us out. It's Final Approach.